Hello, Shrewdness! Welcome to this week's special episode about Guillotine Football. We're going to cover week one, our observations. We're going to cover the injuries that happened this weekend, some disappointments from players you may have, some surprises, and kind of go into what do I do to make it through week two? Because if you're listening still, you probably made it through week one, you still got your head on. So I'm your host today, John Dexter. I got Dr. Lew with me. Chiz and Pruitt are out, but we'll make it happen today. Let's get going. So with that, let's get going. So let's talk about week one, Shrewdness people. We're going to jump right into Guillotine. We had a fun first week, starting off with the most watched season opener in the history of the NFL, Thursday night, Baltimore at Kansas City, where the good guys won, and we beat them by more than a toe anyway. So let's start just from there, from game one. We got Lew. What do we got, Lew? Talk to me about Thursday, and let's just revel in victory and happiness because we're in Wintersville, baby.
All right, so we're doing Royals Chiefs first.
We're doing Gio observations, and it just
Gio
observations first
starting
game
with the
Gio.
Chiefs game.
That's right.
So, of course, for us, it's always a little bit tough being objective, but I think most people agree that game, 27-20, may have been one of the premium games of the week after you can kind of even go back and retroactively create what happened. I think it was both two amazing teams, both of which are going to put up some pretty substantial guillotine points. I think one of the biggest things that happened, and it really hit our league strongly, and it's going to hit a lot of leagues, was Isaiah Likely going 9 for 111 with a touch.
Yeah,
and then you balance that with Andrews, the 2 for 14.
Yeah,
that's
that was
crazy.
Surprising because there's no one who predicted that. If anything, the flip of those lines is what people expected. No one was drafting Isaiah Likely. I dare say he's probably a free agent. Well, not in Guillotine, I guess, but in your standard fantasy league, that dude's on waivers. Even though I still think Mark Andrews is still the guy. And from a Guillotine standpoint, do you really think, are you benching Mark Andrews for Isaiah Likely, Lewis?
No, I would play them both because of Guillotine's format. I would literally have one as a flex. A lot of the advanced stats I showed that I saw showed that Mark Andrews actually had a higher route participation and he was on the field more. He just got less looks. But as you've often heard, is that fantasy points are talent and time, right? And Mark Andrews was getting the time. What didn't show up was that they just said Mark Andrews isn't going to beat us. And they doubled Mark almost the whole time. Now people realize after this game, you just can't do that because Isaiah Likely is that good. So I think it's going to balance out. And so there probably are 11 catches there for 130, 40 yards and a touchdown. It's just going to be probably split between the two options much more easily as people realize you can't leave Isaiah Likely alone.
Yeah, I think he absolutely got himself on the map for Guillotine. People out there, I think he's going to cause consternation if you don't have Likely and Andrews. Because I don't think we're not getting 9, 111 and a touch every single week from Likely. I don't think so at all.
No.
But that's just one thing here and there. I think another one that stood out to me is Derrick Henry does not look like the Derrick Henry of old. Despite what people are thinking, preseason, he's going to the Ravens who run the ball all the time. Derrick Henry, workhorse, obviously. He just looked normal, man. He just looked like a guy. Now, and the game was not a hand where you couldn't keep using him. But all I know is that Baltimore used Justice Hill often. And especially going down the stretch, Derrick Henry wasn't even on the field for that last drive. So I think, I don't know, I'd be a little nervous if I'm a Gio owner and I saw that. I'm like, whoa. He's not a bad pass catcher, but they're going to put Justice Hill in that situation every single time. So I think that's something for Gio owners just to be wary of. You certainly are not benching Derrick Henry, but I'm just saying, I'm a little nervous. He doesn't look like he's going to be 20 carries a game and 100 yards a game. He's not going to be one of those lockdown guys. I think he's going
Justice
to be a
Hill,
decent guy.
6 catches,
That's right.
52 yards, 11.5 points.
Just catching
You
it.
should be starting Justice Hill, and as I can see, 74% owned in Geo League. So most people are aware that and have him on their rosters. But what I would also say, like, you probably should be looking to start him if you have any roster concerns whatsoever.
Absolutely. So I want to flip over to the Chiefs side. I mean, Lamar did what Lamar does. I don't think anyone's surprised by that. Zay Jones was fine. He didn't have a huge game, but likely was taking all the looks. I don't think we need to really talk about anyone else. Bateman you're never going to count on that guy. He's looking for a home run or nothing.
Highly variable, yeah.
Absolutely. So flipping over to the Chiefs side, Xavier Worthy, boy, that dude's electric. We saw it a little bit in preseason. It was super nice seeing him come out, especially one was a jet sweep, and then one was a nice catch. But Xavier Worthy, man, he looked great. I think this is actually a sustainable thing going forward. Again, he's not going to get 2 touchdowns a week. That's not what I'm saying. But I think he can be counted on. He's going to get those opportunities, though. And I think there's going to be some game plans where he's going to have quite a few looks, kind of like Jameson Williams for the Detroit in that Sunday game, if you saw that one at all. So what do you think about Xavier Worthy from week 1, Lew? Is he worth starting in your lineup as a comfort, or is he still hanging out in the flex spot for you?
He's definitely flex spot for me. 8 pass catchers for Patrick Mahomes, one of which was himself. Don't forget. So 7 other pass catchers, and he threw one to himself, got himself 1.2 points for his own pass catch. We're talking 1 run and 2 catches. Now, were they amazing? Yes, but this is highly variable stuff. Yes. I still think you have to start him this early in the season. Yeah. But if he's not getting looks, he is somebody who's probably going to be more of a high-risk play later in the year, but I don't think you could ever drop him. It's going to be a weird situation.
Yeah, I'm with you.
With
he's
our
a September
leagues,
starter for sure.
Yeah, he's a September starter for sure. I just get a little bit nervous after that. With our leagues, which are Kansas City dominant, I've been trying to kind of see. I would be really trying to see if you can get him unloaded for something like with a better floor. But he's going to have some burst weeks like this that are just gross, and you're safe immediately. So,
yep. And then let's talk, since we talked tight ends a little bit. Travis Kelce kind of came out with a flopperooski. I think 4 for 40 or something like that.
Yeah,
it's somewhere along there. So for Geo owners, you spent some high draft capital on Kelce, probably second,
3 for 34.
Round.
3 for 34 is actually below.
Yeah,
because you need 60 points basically to feel relatively comfortable, and so you have 8 players trying to get 60 points. So you need about 7.5 points. 3 catches for 34 yards. Quick math is 6.4. He was below your cut line, and I bet you he's out there on a lot of leagues.
Killed people, especially if you had Kelce and Amon-Ra, you're like, oh my God, I've got such a high floor right now because I got the main move the chains guys. Boy, are you not? You lost your head this week, bro. I'm sorry about that. Rashee Rice, I think.
Thanks for sticking with the podcast, though.
That's right. Stick with us. We'll get that relegation one. Just sign up for week 2.
Yeah,
but Rashee Rice looked awesome, man. He looked like our version of Cooper Kupp. He looked like our version of fill in the blank Wes Welker, Edelman. He looked like that guy. He just goes across, gets all those quick slants, no deep balls. I don't think he caught a deep ball all night because he didn't need to.
But tight window throws. We're talking he had like 6 inches to catch the ball. Nobody could cover it, and the throws were perfect.
That's
it. And if you do that, that is uncoverable, unbeatable like stuff.
It is. So as we move into week 2, this is kind of what I wanted to get into. Hollywood Brown he's questionable, but I think he's going to hit the practice field tomorrow, and they'll make a final determination on him. I assume he'll probably be a game-time decision if we get cut down to it. But if Hollywood Brown's on the field, how do you see that impacting for our Geo owners out there with Rashee Rice? Should they even sweat it?
No.
I don't think
No,
so.
I think Hollywood Brown's going to and Worthy are both going to be home run balls. And I think that your Rashee Rice is only going to be limited by if the commissioner puts him on the exemption list, which it
I think he's
doesn't
not doing
look like that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I kind of I got too nervous that might happen, so I was less aggressive in taking him, and I kind of obviously regret it now because he looks like the real deal. He looks like a cup. He looks like a league winner type
He
guy.
does. God, he looks good. And it's the same reason I moved him down as well, because you can't assume too much risk, especially he was going to be a higher pick, and he was. I don't remember exactly what round he went in our league, but I assume he was around 4 or 5. And that's where he
Casey took him, and he took him like in round 3. He
went that
was more.
early?
Yeah,
That
he
is
was.
early.
It's Casey.
That's right. And then so Hollywood Brown, though, for those that may have him stashed on there, I would absolutely watch. And there's no way he's not better than one of your scrubs. You're starting in one of your flex spots right now. If he plays, I'm starting him. And
but I will predict right now, I will go on record, he is not playing this week. Absolutely not playing this week. I don't think they need him this week. If T. Higgins is not playing, I don't think they are worried enough to play him, especially with how bad the Bengals looked. I think they play it safe. They go back out. They run half vanilla. They see how the game goes. I would not bet on the Chiefs. But I bet you they're going to take another week because I don't think they're that worried about the Bengals with how the Bengals looked last week and no T. Higgins again. They look miserable.
They look bad. So let's use that. We'll parlay on over let's go into some injuries. So big injuries that Gio owners out there are going to have to maneuver around. Like for myself, for instance, Jordan Love out 3 to 6 weeks, not optimal. CMC, everybody that took him number 1 overall, and he definitely went top 3 overall no matter what league you're in, he's still a question mark. And they might hold him out week 2 anyway, and it didn't help him get back on the field when the third string Jordan Mason racked up 147 in a tutty. So I think CMC owners out there probably need to plan on no CMC week 2. And I certainly wouldn't bank on it. I just don't think they'll assume the risk. Yeah, hopefully you're handcuffed. And it wasn't Elijah Mitchell because that guy's out for the season too. Our favorite guy, Jake Turd Ferguson, I think he's out for the year. Did he snap his ACL?
I know it's at least IR, which it's a full month at minimum. I think so
he's probably out till week 7 or whatever. Yeah. That's the same with Puka Nacua. So Puka Nacua had a knee, got carted off. He's a week 7. And I know that was a first-round pick for everybody out there. So you're going to have to kind of hit the waiver wire. T. Higgins, who had high aspirations, especially in our rankings, because Lewis really liked the contract year. And
I thought he wouldn't have this nonsense.
Yeah, he's just on a good offense, and he had all the reps because Jamar Chase was out for all of preseason. So we expected big things, and then out of the blue, dude doesn't practice, hurt like 2 days before. Yeah. He's questionable this week. It doesn't sound like he's going to play.
Schefter called he's not playing this week already. Schefter's already on record, which
we got David Njoku. He's out for Cleveland, tight end.
Game time decision, but I agree. I don't think he's playing. I am planning on him not playing, but I mean, he's a top 10 tight end.
Scrounge some tight ends. We're going to have Dr. Lew here fill in some who might be able to target. We got Russell Wilson is going to be another week, probably not playing, not slated to, hasn't practiced yet. And per Tomlin, the Pittsburgh Steelers are still preparing to go forward with Justin Fields as their week 2 starter as of right now, barring a miracle recovery by Wilson, which it could happen. I could definitely see that.
That being said, Fields was competent adjacent. I think they're reasonably happy with how he generally looked.
Yeah.
And they won the game. And I think that it would take a lot for them to then go back and start somebody else. So,
and frankly, if you were starting Justin Fields, what in the hell were you doing in your draft? Because my God, that's terrible. But regardless, you've already suffered, and so if you have him, ride him out for one more week and hope for the best. Rome Odunze, if you're one of those rookie guys that loves rookies, he's questionable, and he had one catch for 8 yards or something. So he's kind of exactly what we thought. We were worried about that. He's third or fifth fiddle maybe on that Chicago offense. and he's going to have some upside down the road, but we're just not on him for this year. We had another, depending on what your thoughts are, Kenneth Walker III and Mostert both have ab and chest injuries, both questionable. Not sure if either of them will play. They're both or haven't practiced yet this week. We'll have to find out what happens with them closer.
Yeah, you're going to have to plan. You
need contingencies for sure. You need to be able to sub somebody in on a game time decision window. And, well, we'll just see what happens on that. I already talked about Hollywood Brown. If he shows up, I'd put him in my lineup. He's certainly better than some of my scrubs I got sitting in the flex spots. But as of right now in Gio, everybody's rocking scrubs, so don't be paranoid that you have scrubs. Everybody does. Just try and get some that can actually score. So with that, who do you have as some potential targets for our shrewdness Gio players who might be suffering through some of these injuries? So quarterbacks are going to be thin. I don't even know if Fields is out there. I guess I can try and grab him.
I would say quarterback in general is the thickest you're going to get because nobody has room to stash quarterbacks. There are 32 starting quarterbacks, and you can't play two quarterbacks. So there will always be a dart throw quarterback out there where you may not have a decent dart throw in other things. You're always going to have at least a dart throw with quarterback. Some matchup where like, oh, yeah, this quarterback's terrible, but they're not playing the best defense in the world, and I got like a shot at getting something out of this person.
Yeah, but my thoughts are you're probably on the same boat. I mean, most leagues, it's going to be the Jacoby Brissetts, your Justin Fields, your Bo Nixes. I mean, they're not going to bring much to the table, but they're better. Oh, shit. Hopefully they're better than zero. Bo Nix, I don't know how much better than zero he was last week, but he was towing the edge.
It's crazy, but like if you're absolutely desperate and you have a good enough team, you could start Malik Willis. Look, if you have all the other pieces and you can't, and for some reason you can't get another quarterback, Indianapolis' defense didn't look awesome. And you just never know what you could get. And as long as you only need about 8 or 9 points.
That's true.
Per person.
If you can get double digits, you're feeling great.
Yeah. So Malik Willis, I wouldn't recommend it necessarily, but it could happen. So like I don't do it, but you could. So that's why quarterback is a little bit unique in that stretch. So what I like to do in kind of giving advice, I don't think that I would really necessarily tell you how to bid or do what you want to do. The standard party line in Guillotine is don't spend money early. All right. You have 1,000 free agent dollars. It sounds like a lot. We have a famous line in our league, which is, go to the Mons Venus strip club in Tampa Bay, basically with your free agent dollars on the opening day. All right. You go out, you spend $500, $600, $800 of your fab money, and then you're going to be just struggling at the end. Don't overvalue getting a starter to overpay too early. But I do think that everybody who generally should be on a team should be bid on with some amount of money. If you want a good resource, Paul Charchin, who created this, has a GL Chop podcast, and he goes through what he thinks he would tend to bid on people. You can get into all that on the bidding side by going to reasonable whatever. My thought is if you feel like you need them, you probably are going to be up to $100 for a starter is the most I would tell you to go for this early, and put the bid in. And if for some reason your league just doesn't care about that person, you might get lucky, but if you don't win it, it's probably better. I think where you find your winners are when you start looking at the people who you're going to try to get for $1 to $5. And these are the people who are not owned in many leagues, all right? The nice part about Guillotine is that you can pull up the free agency list, and it will tell you the percent of people who owns the players. And you can go through and find, and this is not for our league specific, this is all leagues, right? So I'm kind of looking at the 30% and below. Where can you find value? Tucker Kraft. Now, I know you've got a questionable
Yep.
quarterback. Tucker Kraft is the starter over Luke Musgrave at this point, and he's only owned in 23% of Guillotine leagues. Um, that
And
is
he
an easy,
and he'd be
easy
a good
pickup.
fix, especially if you had Ferguson or Njoku. That's not the worst thing in the world. You know he's going to
Malik
be.
Willis is going to be dumping the
That's
ball
exactly
probably
what I was going to
low.
hit at.
Yeah.
He's not going to be sitting back and looking for deep balls. He's going to be like, oh, crap, let's get rid of it. I think he's going to dump it to Jacobs a lot. He's going to be looking for his tight ends, crossing routes. I don't know. I just – his body of work when he was at Tennessee, he wasn't that good. But, hey, he's still in the league. They thought enough of him to trade for him at the end of August. He's their backup quarterback to Jordan Love. They obviously think something of him.
You could look at Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce,
Yeah.
13% of leagues have rostered Alec Pierce. I'm a little bit skeptical. He's got a little bit of the Xavier Worthy kind of stats. Like
He
it was
does.
three
But
catches
one
for
was like that
125 yards.
70-yard bomb by Richardson, which is awesome.
It is definitely a streaming option. I mean, I wouldn't go more than $5, but I mean, I don't think that he should probably not be rostered at this point. I think most people are going to try to roster him. I personally love Josh Oliver as a streaming tight end option. All right, starting tight end for now. Hey, I'm going to own up, man. Competent quarterback play against a reasonable defense.
Oh, I was waiting all night to hear that.
Yeah, I know.
Early.
I don't think Josh Oliver, if you're desperate, let's say you own Joe.
He plays for the Vikings. Sam Darnold is who he's hinting that was competent, and he was competent. 208 yards, 2 tutties, 1 to Jefferson, 1 to Naylor. And boy, that's all they need in that position for the Vikings. Solid D. But continue with how good Oliver's going to be.
I think Oliver could be played. Reasonable play. And so if you're looking like me with Njoku, if you're having some issues with tight end, I would look at there. I think Noah Gray is only owned in 2.5% of leagues.
Yeah, that's surprisingly low.
Yeah, very low. That guy just got a big contract, and he got 37 yards receiving. He is going to be a touchdown potential person every week, I don't think he is a terrible pickup there. I would also like to go through, and who were the other couple people I was looking at? We were looking at Wilson for the Miami Dolphins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, owned in basically no leagues. And there's a strong possibility that he actually plays this week because both Achane and Mostert are potentially not going to play. So he should at least be rostered. But, I mean, I'd do $1, maybe $2 if you wanted to be like a little bit aggressive. I love Luke Schoonmaker. All right? Keep this one.
You have to sell me on this one.
Rostered in 0.5% of leagues, right?
Yeah, it sounds like there's a reason.
Turk Ferguson's out. He's out for at least a month. It might be the whole season, right?
Yeah.
And Dak loves throwing to the tight ends. He has for years. Luke Schoonmaker is the starting tight end in an offense that loves to throw to tight ends.
Yeah, you know what?
He's going to get looks. For $1, for $1, getting him
especially
on your roster.
You need one. Just put him as a contingency option when you're going through your guillotine, and you got to make sure he gets somebody. You can't take a known goose in your lineup.
Yeah, no, I love that one in the 0.5% of leagues. It's an easy one. You also have Adam Troutman for Denver. This week, bad call, but something to look at. Starting tight end for the Denver Broncos, and you have a rookie quarterback who's probably going to be leaning on him a little bit. I do like that one as well.
Just got Pittsburgh coming into town, which makes it a tough matchup.
Could easily take a week off of messing with that one for sure. I wouldn't get too
even
aggressive.
Though Kyle Pitts still got in against him, so they're not impenetrable, but still a tough defensive matchup for that one.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson, that was it. I don't think that's a terrible
Miami.
I would definitely look at picking him up. 0.9% of leagues have Jeff Wilson rostered right now, and he may start against Buffalo, who was struggling to stop a very
Or
good Cardinals team.
he may
So
get nothing because A-Chain and Mostert both show up
could
in
play, but you
the
should
good season.
roster him. You should roster him,
Absolutely.
or at least put $1 bid on him. I don't think it would hurt.
Because
To
most
at
people are
least
carrying on their total roster people who didn't even suit up in week 1. So I think
right.
if you got some of those people and you've got any injury you're trying to protect, time to go from there. All right, I want to pivot over to some of the biggest disappointments in week 1 and
Yep.
who to not just no panic, baby. You don't need to throw away your draft
don't
sheet.
hit the panic button, guys.
That's it. But the thing is, there were some bad ones. So we already talked about Kelsey earlier. He's going to be an early round tight end, probably the number 1 off the board. Certainly a top 3 tight end off the board. Amon-Ra St. Brown was a top 3 wideout off the board, and he killed our guy. So Amon-Ra, I'm sure he killed multiple people in Gio, especially if he had to settle up with any of the other ones. If you had any of these other guys or disappointments we'll go through, not good. Chark, not good. Cousins, not good. Will Levis, terrible. Mostert, terrible. CMC didn't even play, and apparently they knew Friday but didn't tell the fantasy world until before, so you couldn't even pick up free agents hardly. There's a lot of bad games out there. But at the end of the day, you're never going to bench Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you have him on your team, keep him on your team. He's going to be just fine. Kirk Cousins is going to bounce back. He's not going to be that bad. It looked like a guy who tore his Achilles in week 5 and didn't play any preseason games. Will Levis, I'm not sure about him. If you're starting him, you didn't draft well enough for your quarterback. CMC, we already talked about the perils of him. Hopefully you got Jordan Mason as a handcuff. If not, you're probably going on week 2 without CMC. But do you have any other disappointments you want to add to that, Lou, of who out there people need to not panic about if they have these names?
Not panic or panic. If you have a Giant or a Panther on your roster, yes, I would start panicking.
Yeah, well, those aren't disappointments. That's who you draft in this 14th round.
I saw nothing that made me think that either of those teams is going to have a fantasy relevant person at all.
I mean,
and
Jonathan Brooks
terrifying.
Maybe start week 7. But yeah, you're right. Chubba Hubbard. I mean, God help us, but Carolina might again be the worst team in the league.
But they get their pick this time. That's nice.
Yeah, they get their pick this time. That's true. But I really don't know. I can't see 4 wins in a season for them. And they certainly look like the worst team in the NFL week 1. I mean, God help that Canales head coach. I don't think it's him. You just can't win without talent. Right now, they don't have much talent. I think some of the surprises. So if you had these guys on your team, you got a little Yahtzee burger. So Baker Mayfield, he was one of the highest scoring quarterbacks last week. I think he had 280-ish or something, 4 touchdowns. Jaden Daniels, he did kind of what we thought he's going to do, but he makes me nervous. When I saw 16 carries for those 88 rushing yards, I'm like, good Lord, man. You got Brian Robinson, Eckler. I'd use those guys. But what do you do on those 88 yards? 2 tutties. So if you got Jaden Daniels, you're feeling pretty good. But I'd also be a little cautious because the 184-0 is also a notable stat line.
Yeah. Captain Checkdown. Don't forget Captain Checkdown.
Yeah.
That dude had a hell of a game.
He did. Derek Carr, very good. We call him Captain Checkdown affectionately or inaffectionately, whatever you want to be. The Lizard. This guy just shows up every now and then, like every 9th game of his NFL career. Alan Lazard for the Jets. 6 for 89, 2 touchdowns. That is fool's gold, people. That is fool's gold. If you had him on your team, you hit the lottery, baby. You found the pot of gold under the rainbow, but do not expect that on a weekly basis. He's going to be okay, but Mike Williams is still going to be the number 2. And Garrett Wilson's going to be getting all those number 1 targets. We already talked about Isaiah Likely. Great game. Do I think he's going to go for 100 every week and be the best tight end in the league? Nah, this guy's still mid-pack for me, man. But if you had him, you killed it this last week. Jamison Williams, another standout. People that they were talking about him in the offseason, and he was rising up draft boards, but we still weren't quite sure. 5 for 121, touchdown. He looked really good. I think Detroit's got something there. In year 3, as long as he doesn't gamble on himself, he might even last the whole season.
It's the 5 that makes me nervous. Like, that's just that's not sustainable. Like, you want Cooper Kupp 13. Like
Well, you
Cooper
want that.
Kupp, 13 matters. When
Yeah.
you have 5 catches, it could be 5 for 10, right? But you can also get 5 for 120. But if you get 13, you can have 13 for 13 and you're still happy, right?
Yeah,
like
you got
13
points.
Yes, like that's great.
So here's what I got out of the Jameson Williams. He looked a lot like the Slim Reaper. He looked like Devontae Smith for Philly. They looked the same. They went to the same college. They ran the same routes under Saban. So the reason they look so similar is because they are. But at the end of the day, I think you can feel pretty happy about starting him going forward. He's just going to be a boomer bust player. But on the boom weeks, you are cleared, and your head is going to stay attached most likely.
Well, I tell you who I had to say my big surprise.
Yeah.
Brian Thomas Jr. for the Jags.
He did.
I know he had 4 for 47 with a touchdown.
Yep.
But if you watched any of that game, it was a very impressive 4 for 47. Like, that dude looked like the best rookie who was playing, even over Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors. Like, he looked like the best of them all. Right. And so I would definitely keep your eye on him. I wanted to touch on transitioning into, I've been looking at, and I would kind of give a guidance here, trades in Guillotine. You should be aggressive with trades because you have limited free agent dollars. You have limited abilities to make your teams better. It's really tough sledding early because you have a few assets that matter, and then you have a bunch of assets that don't matter that nobody really wants because they have the same don't matter assets. I don't think you're going to get a lot of value trying to trade early, but as we go forward, I think you need to be looking aggressively at making trades. And when you're looking at trades, I think it's incredibly important for you to realize when somebody has a pending buy, you discount them 25, 30% of what you actually think they are. But if they've already had their buy, you give them 30 to 40% more value.
Absolutely.
If someone's already had their buy and someone's trying to trade for one of your assets and they've already had the buy, you have to look at that with stink eye because your post-buy assets are huge.
Yeah, you never have to bench them again.
Never.
I mean, it's just they either get hurt or they don't, but if they don't, you play them all the way to the wire, baby. They're going to the finish for you.
So really look at that buy and the same kind of thing. If you're looking to make a trade and you can grab a post-buy asset, give up more for somebody who's still got a buy coming. And people will be like, oh, I can't believe you gave up X player and only got X, Y back. But if Y has already had their buy, they're worth more. They're worth more.
Right.
So I wouldn't get too caught up in trades right now, but they are.
That's an October passion, though. You got to be looking in October when there's actually some stuff on the waiver wire and some people have some positional depth somewhere.
Yeah,
because there'll be a time where it's going to be bye week is what drives trades almost all the time. You need a solid player to get you 10 to 12, and your dude has a bye.
Within the next couple of weeks, you're going to have people who get desperate, whether it's injuries, whether it's whatever. And if you feel you can move from a position of strength, sometimes, even if it's just for like 100 fab or 200 fab, you can hook somebody up with a player that can keep them alive, and then you can stash fab or you could stash a potential post-buy asset. Start looking for these options. Find the desperate people who are whining on your message boards about how they think they're about to go. Try to find a way to throw them a lifeline. Keep them around because their team kind of sucks, obviously, or they wouldn't be complaining. All right? And try to find where you could help their team out, keep them alive, and you get fab. You get something back and kind of punish them for being in a bad position.
Because you're still faster than them.
Yes.
You don't have to be the fastest. Just let them get eaten by the bear a couple weeks before you.
Not going to be seeing it now. We're going to talk about it more and more as we go along, but keep your eye out for these situations. They're coming if they aren't already here.
All right, so for our new to Gio people, which I know there's going to be plenty of them listening to the show because we are one of the pioneer Gio podcasts out there. I believe we're the only ones strictly talking about Gio. But what do you do? So if someone had CMC and the number one pick in the drafts out there, this isn't really relevant in our league, but for CMCs out there, I remember last year seeing that because he obviously people are still going to lose even if you have him. But when you have the number one pick in the entire NFL sitting out there for fab and you've got $1,000 burning a hole, what can you tell those new players to Gio about how much to spend? Because I saw last year people were spending all 1,000 of it to get him. Then I don't know. I mean, it's just a ton. But do you get the best running back in the league, the offensive player of the year, MVP candidate? You do. But what do you recommend for advice to those new players out there?
Number one, listen to Paul Charchian's GL Chop podcast. He's going to give you great perspective. He's going to pull numbers. I have to say that first and foremost because that's where you're going to get some really great numbers. But what I will tell you is with CMC and CMC-like players, last year I had Justin Jefferson, second overall pick, same type of deal, where when that person hits the waiver wire and probably not playing next week.
Yeah, well, there is that for him. Let's just say he is, though.
If they were playing next week, I still would say the most I would recommend is 200 fab. If you go over 200 fab, you are the person who's not going to be around in week 8, week 9, week 10 when this gets so fun. All right?
Yeah.
Let it go. And especially with CMC probably not playing next week, if you burn $500-600 of your fab dollars trying to get CMC to stash him for a week, goodbye.
But
you're done.
Jamar Chase,
this is not the fantasy league for you.
Yeah, but Jamar Chase, you kind of have similar. So the people who got him and they got their 6 for 60 and maybe chopped right now, or Puka Nacua. I mean, he's not really one you'd bid on, but Jamar Chase would be. So you're saying about $200 cap, no matter how good they are week one.
First round player,
you screw yourself, right?
Yeah, you think that 200 you got plenty.
The rest of the year.
You think that 200 sounds like, I still have 800. You can get Puka Nacua, Jamar Chase, and CMC sometimes in week 14 or whatever for
week 5 or 10.
For like $5 fab dollars sometimes. Like it gets
you're the
crazy.
Only one with anything left.
Yeah. So as long as you have the resources, you can go nuts and get the craziest team. The team you have is consistently put out there. The team you have right now is not the team you will end the season with. No. Unless you get chopped, of course.
And here's what I want to tell all the Gio players out there, especially the ones that might be new to it, and even the grizzled vets. And just a reminder, you still only have to you just have to beat one of 17 teams next week. 18's gone. Now you have 17. Just be 16th. You don't need to blow your wad on a big player. I mean, you've got to have multiple holes. If you are CMC and Nacua on your team, all right, man, you better be on something because you don't have anybody to get those points for you.
If you lost a lot of starters who are not going to play next week, you're kind of in a boat where you got to probably just spend some fab dollars to keep yourself alive. And this is where it gets painful because there's going to be somebody else at Mons Venus. And so now you're like, but I have to have X player or I don't think I'm going to survive because I have 3 major injuries or whatever. Definitely all been – if you've done it before, you know what this situation is. It happens. And suddenly you just like hamstring the rest of your year and you try to piece it together. Hopefully you're not in that boat. I definitely had 2 starters go down already, and I still should be fine, but it sucks.
Yeah, and just for our listeners out there, so week 1, I mean, you're listening to some people who kind of know what they're doing. So I think we had 3 of the top 4 scorers for week 1 in our league. I think that's right. Did we look? What was the final?
We had Chisholm was 1, I was 2, and I didn't see where you are, but I think I got pull it 4th. Up.
Yeah, I think someone nubbed me out by like half a point from 3rd. So I set the floor early. All my guys were done Sunday afternoon after the early games, and I think I was at like 107 points.
1, 2, and 4.
Yeah. So when we're talking, man, we're not trying to toot our horn because we only had to be 15, 16, and 17 this week. But at the end of the day, we've got some pretty good strategies. We've played a couple years doing this. We know what we're doing. And we just want to help you get there too. So let's move into some kind of other issues that we need to talk about is that when you have the fab dollars later, it's great. You don't want to blow it early. We already hit on that. But a lot of it just boils down to most of the time you're not going to have matchup issues right now, right? So your scabs are not going to be your scabs. Don't overthink when one of those crappy dudes, and we're saying surprises, right? So if you had Isaiah Likely, but you also have Kelsey, don't bench Kelsey for Isaiah Likely. Just be smart about it. J.K.
Play them both.
What's that?
Play them both. You got a flex spot.
Or play them both. That's fine too.
Yeah, with tight ends are kind of weird. You can play them both, man.
But just it's fool's gold a lot in week one. The stuff sometimes never happens again. So don't overthink week one and don't get super negative about week one. It happens every single year. You'll have these randos blow up in week one. Everybody blows their load to get off them. And then they suck, and then you're done. And you just waste money. So be confident in who you drafted if you had good, sound reasons. If they just had a bad week, they had a bad week. But be calm early on. Any other kind of advice you want to provide our Geo folks? Kind of just
no, that's what I said. Bid reasonably. Don't get nuts. The week 2 historic cut line is 68 points. So 8 times 8 is 64. You need 8.x points per person that you are starting. You have 8 starters. 8 times 8.5-ish is what you need.
So
and
4
you
for 40,
should
man.
be fun.
4 for 40, 20 yards and a touchdown from your running back. They just got to flop in. You didn't even get Gus Edwards, man. Just flop them in.
If your quarterback's going to score you 20 points, that makes up for some bad ground you're going to have on some questionable starters like, I don't know, maybe a Dontavian Wicks who gives you a flat 0, but yet you still get top 2 in the overall scores. So that's what happens. That's why Josh Allen was the pick that we all kind of isolated as the one quarterback really probably worth it. Man, he was worth -2 points with 2 minutes to go in the first half, and I was stressing. And then he was worth a 30 ball. So, bang.
And what did he do, Lou? Why did you draft Josh Allen first round?
2 touchdowns running, 2 touchdowns passing, and Jesus, it was amazing.
Because you're making it to week 2, 3, 4.
Didn't matter. I could have started literal potatoes, and as long as I had Josh Allen and Cooper Kupp, I was totally fine. I literally was safe on their 2 scores alone. I could have not filled out the rest of my roster in my league, and I would have gotten past the historic cut line, and I would have been 20 points past our unfortunate cut victim. So.
All right, so that wraps it up for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed talking and listening about Guillotine Fantasy Football. Hopefully we gave you some stuff you can use to help you out, to keep you going through the league. So on behalf of Dr. Lew, this is Dex. We're signing off. Please like, follow, subscribe, Spotify, YouTube, X, Instagram, TikTok. We're kind of all over the place. But tell your friends, baby. All right, Shrewdness out.